Hi, hi. Awesome. Okay, hi everybody. And hi Julie. Oh, let's see. I think you're muted. I can't hear you. Oh, now I can hear you. No, I can't hear you. Say something.
Hello.
Okay, okay. We're good. Get all the little techie stuff out of the way. Hi everyone. Boy, am I excited. Okay, I'm just looking at these comments. Oh, so fun. We already have a couple comments. Andrea is watching from St. Peters, Missouri. Christine is watching from Sacramento. Hi, guys. I'm glad you're here. Everyone, this is...
Oh, no. Frozen.
Okay, my computer... to the technology and it's all going to work so we can get our message across today. We're just going to set that intention, okay? Awesome. So Julie, I want to jump in. I want to jump in pretty quickly here because we have so much to share and I don't want to waste any time. Here's how we're going to run this today, guys, is I'm going to be really asking Julie a lot of questions to tell us about her experience, which is inspiring and beautiful. I recommend you bring a notebook and take notes on truths that you hear or, you know, things that you think, oh my gosh, I hadn't thought about that before. And what I'm going to ask you to do is if you have questions, even personal questions about Julie's story or questions for me about, you know, some of the how pieces or whatever, please put those in the comments. And then at the end, we'll give a couple minutes to just scrolling through, checking on those questions and take some time to answer as many questions as we can. So place your questions in the comments and we won't answer them as we go. We'll answer them at the end just for, you know, the flow of the conversation and stuff. And you guys, this is beautiful Julie. And Julie and I, let's see, we've known each other for, has it been 3 years now? I think it has been. Almost. So, Julie is an amazing person. She is a mother of 2 kids. She lives in the middle of New York City. She has the most vibrant life of anyone I know. The whole time I've known her, I get messages from her, like she sends me little videos of like, look at what I'm doing. Julie is also extremely talented and artistic. And so during the time that we've even worked together, I have seen her painting at Times Square. I've seen her painting at Central Park. I've seen her painting on like bridges or near bridges and as a face painter and entrepreneur. So, so Julie, you are amazing. And I am so grateful that you're here with us today.
Thank you.
But we aren't here to talk about all the surfacey, wonderful stuff, are we? I honor you so much. And I know I've shared this with you, but I just want to start with this for being willing to show up and be a voice for these women, for this pain that you know. Mm-hmm. And so thank you. When Julie and I met, there was a lot of pain and disconnection. And even despite like her successes in her career and otherwise, I would say Julie seemed pretty lost. She was like, someone help me, please. Like deep down inside, it was like, I don't know what to do. I've been trying to figure this out on my own for so long. And watching her has been one of the greatest gifts of my life, to see her grow and transform and step into her heart's desires and save her marriage. So So there's our introduction, guys. Say hi to Julie in the comments, and let's get going.
Okay.
So I'll put up my finger if I'm gonna try. We're gonna try and keep Julie's answers to a minute so we can pepper through a lot of questions. So if you start talking for more than a minute, we've already talked about this beforehand, but I'll put up a finger.
Can I say something quick first?
Oh yeah, sure, go ahead.
I just want to thank you for doing this, for bringing this up, and for addressing this, because when I was going through this, I can't tell you how many hours, days, weeks, months I spent researching and trying to find like a voice for this. And the only thing I could find was like a mere mention. It would be an article about unbalanced sex drives between partners, but it was always about the man. And then they would say,
flip the script.
It'd be like, and this can also happen with women. You know, like it would be like a little sentence, and I could barely find anything. So the fact that you're addressing this in such a thorough way is very appreciated.
I love that you bring that up, because that's so absurd to me. Like when I first became a relationship coach, I didn't understand. I believed all the stereotypes. So I didn't understand that it really wasn't true that most women have trouble getting turned on and most men are, you know, I really thought those were all true. I thought that that's the way it was. But the more that I have coached and the more that I've researched and spoken with hundreds of women, I've learned that it's really just a matter of mismatched sex drives. And it's like, to me, it's 50-50. When I listen to the voices of real people, it's like, it just depends. It could be one, it could be the other. And so I can't, it's baffling to me. And maybe it's still part of like the patriarchy or something. My conspiracy theorist is like, maybe they're still trying to keep women small or something, because it really is, the stereotypes are not true. So I'm so glad we're doing this too.
I have more to say, but I guess I should just let you get to your questions.
Let's do it. Let's jump in. So, Julie, you know, as I mentioned in the beginning, when you and I first met and started working together, you were feeling pretty disconnected, pretty low self-esteem, and really alone.
Mm-hmm.
If you could kind of give us a snapshot of what that looked like. Tell me about what that was like for you.
Well, yeah, I mean, I felt disconnected from my husband, but I also felt disconnected from myself. So that is something that I really think is a huge factor in this, because if you're not connected to yourself, then I think it's really hard to relate to other people as a whole person.
That is like goddess tip number one. So if you are here and you're not taking notes, you should be. If this is your issue, you should be here like feasting on this thing today, because this is how much value you're going to get. And that's goddess tip number one is, if you're feeling disconnected from others, you're probably also feeling disconnected from yourself. And that's where we start.
Yeah. And that's like, you know, it's easier said than done. I mean, this is not like, okay, I'm going to be connected to myself, you know, like, it's been a long journey and I'm still learning, but I do feel like I'm over the hump. But anyway, back then, in terms of like intimacy, I would say that, I was kind of desperately clawing at trying to get attention, and, in all ways, and it wasn't working. And in terms of like intimacy, in terms of sex, say, I was essentially begging and saying things like, I need this, you know, why can't you give this to me? And it wasn't really like always that way for sex. I mean, and I know you're going to get to that, but that wasn't working. And you would tell me that if I could learn to trust myself and what we were just talking about, you know, be more connected to myself, that eventually that would bring him up, and not to focus on him. But that's really hard when you feel like
said than done.
Yeah. So and I was like, that can't be true. You know, just like, that's BS. But it is true. But I
give us like one snapshot from that time in your life?
Yeah, I mean, basically it was like me crying myself to sleep at night, you know, just feeling very alone, spending a lot of time alone. He was isolating, and I was kind of afraid to really be honest about how I felt. I didn't know if I wanted to go on in the marriage. You know, I was having like pretty dark thoughts. And that's not to say that I never had joyful moments or anything. I mean, especially considering my work, you know, like being a face painter at children's parties, it's not like I never had fun. And I had fun with my family too, but it was just that there was this underlying kind of doom feeling of feeling very disconnected and alone and lonely.
And thanks again so much for just being so vulnerable right out the door. I know that there was a couple major life events that led up to your marriage getting to this point, right?
Yeah.
So some of the things we had discussed as we were preparing for today to talk about this is one, having your daughters. And like any wonderful hippie mama, you had the girls in your bed for many years on and off, right? Many years.
Yeah.
And then later his diabetes really started to take a greater hold, right? And so then the erectile dysfunction started happening. And then last his sister died.
Yes. Right? Yeah. Well, I don't think I've ever heard them all like you know, put in one sentence, but yes.
Right, strung together like that, it's like holy, like perfect storm. So it kind of led to all levels of mental, emotional, that level of intimacy, then even, you know, spiritual level of intimacy, and then that physical level of intimacy, all kind of crashing down.
Right.
How long would you say you struggled with feeling a desire or a longing for deeper intimacy?
Well, I've probably always, I mean, if I was really being perfectly honest, probably my entire life, because I don't think like up until now, I mean, so like 47 years. I mean, just like,
I get it though.
I really feel like I'm just getting started with like knowing myself and, you know, being somewhat fully expressed. So, but from what you're talking about, I mean, now it's been over 10 years. I mean, yeah, I mean, it was
those specific struggles in your marriage. And
yeah, I mean, well, my older daughter is 14, so and she was in our so she was in our bed, and at first I said, oh, we'll keep her there for 6 months, and then it was a year, and then it was 18 months, and then you know, and so it was hard.
So again, you guys who are watching here, I'll just reiterate, if you have questions, you want to know more of personal questions for Julie, just write Julie and put your question in the comments. And if you have questions for me as the coach, as the intimacy expert, put Melissa and then your questions in the comments. And we're going to have a Q&A section afterwards so we can address your questions. So, okay, so thanks, Julie. So a pretty big disconnect there, and then your husband's clearly going through a ton, and you're going through a lot. What do I want to ask you next? What kinds of things kept you awake at night? Like, what were you thinking in some of those darker times?
Well, whether I wanted to be in the relationship was a big one. And also, but then, you know, is something wrong with me? I mean, it seems like very stereotypical, but it is true. Like, you know, is there something that I could do? And I would try to think of all these different, you know, ways to like make myself more attractive, or, you know, draw him in, or, you know, kind of craft the way I was going to approach him. Like maybe if I try asking him this way, or maybe if I try saying it in this, you know, or like this time of day, or whatever, like, you know, this is going to work, or this is going to work. And it never, I mean, it wasn't like it never worked, but it wasn't like whole. Do you know what I mean? It was like, okay, it worked this time, but it's like, you know, the stars aren't going to align every single time. It has to be done from like this pure, vulnerable, authentic place for it to really take hold. And so, you know, we're in that,
Right.
but like, it was a long time of just struggling to like, you know, just grasping at straws. It just really felt like I was grasping at straws.
And if you're watching this and you relate with what she just said, type grasping at straws in the comments. Because gosh, I really do think it makes so much sense. And also it's like soul gnawing to do that, isn't it? It's like it gnaws at our soul. It like
So,
us away to be
yeah,
constantly trying to prove or trying to fix.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think I was lower energy than too, and which also didn't feel good because I'm like naturally higher energy, and I felt like stifled and just tired because I was spending so much mental and emotional energy trying to like just scrape this together and make it into some semblance of normalcy and happiness, you know.
Mm-hmm. How long did you try to figure this out on your own before you ever spoke to someone about it?
Well, I mean, I've been in therapy on and off for a long time, but I would say I saw there was one therapist that I saw before I met you, and he was very helpful, and I think of it as like a precursor to working with you, kind of. But so that was probably like I'd say like 5 years ago or so.
So then there was a period of like a couple
Oh, there
of
was a long period, probably, you know, 5 years or so, where I was just like completely lost and like had, you know, I was just trying to do everything on my own. And then I learned some skills from him, but working with you kind of like, it was just like unlike anything I've ever experienced, unlike anything I've ever experienced. I mean, it was just like completely different. It was just a completely different style of looking at everything, myself, him, the world, everything. So
I remember that it took you some time to really share everything that was going on. And I remember being the first thing you came to tell me about was this extra like studio apartment that you have next door. And what a pain this thing was to you. And it took like we started there and then it was like all the unraveling. And then you were like, and we haven't had sex in how long? And we, but I remember being like, oh my gosh, you've been carrying this alone. And I think at that time he was like almost spending every night at the studio, right? Or he would go there for the evenings, but
yeah, it
speak
was,
to that.
yeah, there was a lot of time spent alone, and he was still grieving at that time about his sister. So there was that too, and I was there for him, but it was hard for him to be present. Yeah. So yeah.
So I mean, gosh, when we just talk about like all levels,
Yeah.
when we talk about this piece with physical intimacy specifically, and you said there was a lot of even like every attempt, begging, every attempt you could think. What kind of phrases did your husband say to you about physical intimacy?
You mean about the not sexual? He said he wasn't. He said he would tell me that he wasn't sexual anymore, and he went so far as to say that he was asexual, which is not true, because the thing is, it was like when he wasn't thinking about it, he would make comments or react in a way that was sexual, and then but when he was thinking about it, he would like start analyzing it and tell me that he wasn't. It was like a coping mechanism. And I mean, if he never showed any interest, I might believe him, but it was just weird because his actions didn't jive with what he was saying. So
right, and your guys' history together and all that, right? So that must have been maddening.
well, it was also was maddening and hurtful too, because there was a few times that he said he wasn't sexually attracted to me anymore, that he loved me, but that he wasn't sexually attracted. And I mean, it was excruciating, but it was also confusing because he would then, like compliment me in a way or like touch me in a way that was clearly indicative that that was not the case. And so I would try to point it out, like, the cognitive dissonance there, like, but you can't do this and say that, like, it doesn't work that way. Yeah, yeah. I think it was just that, again, like, I wasn't really in such a like a confident place. Like it's like you can say things, but unless you're saying them from a place of like being kind of in yourself. I don't know. Do you know? I mean, I know you know what I'm talking about. But like,
Right. Well, people do, right? They just say stuff. I mean, probably some of that was like he would just say stuff just to get you to stop, just to get you to like leave him alone, right?
I think there was often like some whining in my voice, like just the desperation, like an underlying desperation. And so it was easy for him to, and also not only that, but when he would react, I think I would end up pulling back because I would get scared that, either he would leave or that, like there was a lot of defensive-ness and reaction instead of action. Like instead of presence, it was like, active, reactive, that kind of thing. So now I'm not scared. Huh?
Did he ever criticize you? Did he ever criticize your body or blame you for the way you
were? Yeah, I don't think it wasn't intended to, and I don't know how common this is. Like, I think, in terms of like aging and stuff, and it wasn't said in a way like that he was complaining. It was more just like, this is the way it is. Like, this is just the natural, just this is what happens.
People just get older and unattractive, and then they just don't want to have sex anymore.
Well, so no, just tag and like that kind, that kind of thing. Yeah. It's like, second, like, I mean, not that it's not true, but like, do we really have to talk about that? Like, like,
well, also, whoever said like SAG means you can't have good sex, or like there's so many misconceptions about that. So I don't want to stay on the pain too much longer here, but Julie, what was your breaking point?
What was my breaking point? I don't even remember like a specific time, but just I just remember a feeling of like, I can't do this anymore. Like something's gonna have to change, and if he's not going to, then I will. And I think I just kind of like bared down and learned as much as I could about healing, and like I may as well be happy myself, and I remember, like I said, when you first brought that up as an idea, it's like it's easy for someone to say that, but if you're not in a place,
meaning to say just pursue your own happiness, that's what you're talking about.
What makes you happy, and I would always think like, well, how can I be happy when this is happening, and because I just associated it, like if my core relationship isn't working, like how can I, but I did the work anyway, and slowly but surely it I started to come around, and yeah, I mean, and
let's go there. Let's really go there. So so I want to shift now into where you are now, and you have come so far. I mean, even like knowing how hard it was for you to even tell me. I remember like how hard it was for you to tell me like, this is our situation, and there was so much shame, and instead you're showing up here radiant, and you're spunky, and you're fully in you and owning who you are. And then you have now like connection with friends on a regular basis, a whole new experience in your marriage and in your intimacy. And
I will say that, I don't want to stop you from saying nice things about me. I'll shut up.
I mean, the fact that you even said yes to this to me is like, you have grown leaps and bounds.
Imagine if you had asked me this like 2 years ago, like there's no way. I never have believed it if someone would tell me that, like, yeah. This was in my future.
So how do you feel about yourself now?
It's funny, like I'm generally happy now. Like I can't even believe I'm saying that, but I am. And I'm now like, you know, working with you, like I had started to forge a relationship with my inner child, and then it kind of like got thwarted somehow, and like now that's starting up again. And I'm starting to acknowledge like a lot of stuff that I think fell by the wayside and was kind of like, you know, washed as a kid.
Right. It's like you've been launched onto this whole like search for wholeness and healing on all levels. It's like, wait, I got a taste of this. Now I can do this in every way. So
Yeah,
cool
well,
to watch you.
when you were saying like about friends, and some of them might be watching, but it's not that, it's like I had friends, I had a lot of fun with friends, but all my relationships started to take on a deeper, more meaningful flavor, whatever, experience. And when I started talking about the stuff with you, it slowly kind of leaked out into all my friendships and everything. And so,
so the juicy question, which I'm sure everyone wants to know, is tell me about your intimacy. What does that look like now? Actually, let's just speak specifically to physical intimacy. What does that look like now?
Okay, so right now we have it scheduled once a week. I love your expression. Right now it's once a week. And so, as you said, he does have ED, so it's not intercourse. And I don't know if that's in our future. I hope it is, but we'll see. But I would say it's not perfect, but I don't know if I'm really looking for perfection. I don't know how specific you want me to get, but I'd say like physically we're both satisfied, and it's more emotionally and I'd say spiritually connecting than it ever was, I think. It's like it's conscious, like we both know it's going to happen. There's no the best, well, not the best part of it, it's not the best part about it, but one of the best parts about it is that I don't have to wonder whether it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. I know it's going to happen.
And there was a question that came through in the group a couple of days ago when I asked, like, what would you want to ask someone who has actually made it through this or whatever? And somebody said, now that you've made it to the other side, do you think he's just doing it like out of obligation, or is his heart actually in it? What would you say to that?
His heart is in it. That's kind of a complicated question, because I think if, like, there's a part of me that wonders if I didn't bring it up. I end up bringing it up every week, I think, because there's still this part of me that's like worried that it's going to go away or something. But every time I brought it up, he's always like, yeah, like I'll say, like, oh, we have our date tomorrow, or we have our time this morning or whatever. He's like, I know, like, it's never like, he's like, yeah, okay. But when we're slowly but surely, he's like, now he's like waiting for it. Like this past week, like I was doing stuff around the house, and like he went in the bedroom, and I opened the door, and he was just like lying in the bed, like waiting for me. So it's like,
is that not like what you've dreamed of?
And it was like really funny, because like he looked at me, and I walked in, and it was like, and he'll say like, did you lock the door? Like he's like taking ownership of it, and it's and I think if left to his own devices, like if I never brought it up, I mean, I do think he would probably ask me about it, but he, like if I said, you know what, we don't need to do this, I wonder, like, would he just say like, okay.
Well, and the point was never to make him into the higher drive partner, right? I mean, that would be like, that's what every low drive partner, or higher drive partner would dream of, is that their partner would somehow just become, I think they use the term unicorn, like that would be like so nice, right? But he had to overcome some serious obstacles.
Yes, and this is one of the things that I wanted to say at the beginning, was that I'm not so sure how much, like, I think there is some wiggle room in the sex drive thing. Like, in other words, I think it is safe to say that I do have a higher sex drive than he does, but I don't think it's quite as mismatched as it appeared. Like, it wasn't mismatched before that. Like, I don't think it's like this person has this sex drive, because there's so many things to go into. Are you, like, is there a health issue going on? Like, it could be so many things. Like, are you holding on to past trauma, like PTSD or something? You know, like, there could be so many things going on that if you can heal those things, then you might find that it's actually not quite as, you know, like, you could, you know, that however you say it, you know, come more together, you know. So
that come together. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. So, what kept you going? What kept you when things were hard or it was rocky, and you know, you made this decision to heal and you're trying to make this work and you're trying to make the marriage work? When things would get hard, what was the thing that you would go back to over and over that kept you persevering along this path? Me, I'm glad. Honestly, though, I really want to like speak to those who are watching. That's 100% gospel, is that you cannot do this alone. And that's where we get all jacked up, is we have so much shame. We think, well, I can't possibly let someone else in to what I'm going through, but you can't do this alone. Right. But thank you. And also,
like, if I came to you, it wasn't like you were doing it for me, but right. you just guided me. I think it was just hope. Like, I think, well, there are a couple of things. One is I'm very determined. Like, if there's something that I want and I know I want it, then I have trouble stopping. Like, I'll just keep like plugging away until like I've exhausted every outlet. So I was willing to try anything and everything to get what I want. You know, I mean, and that's not just to say like sex. I mean, I wanted an intimate relationship, you know, a loving, intimate relationship where I felt valued, and, you know, and a partner and all of that kind of thing.
And it inspires me because you became the kind of person who it would be easy to have that kind of relationship with, right? Like, when you first came to me, all the insecurities and all the things had you acting in ways that like nobody would like that. You know what I mean? Like, and no one's judging you. Of course you were doing those things. It was like, I don't know what else to do, but you were so dedicated to your own personal joy. And I remember us having multiple conversations where it was like, look, we don't know what he's going to choose. And I have to tell you, there were times, so I worked with Julie, and then I also worked with she and her husband. And there were times when I would hear things that he would say, and I would think to myself, I don't know which way this is going to go. I know that Julie is going to get her happy ending because she is freaking determined to get her happy ending. But I'm not sure if he's going to follow along. And that is something that I see keeps women stuck over and over, is that they can't reconcile that. It's like I need a guarantee that he is going to follow along if I do all this work. But that means you're still doing it for him. You got to do it for you.
Right. Yeah, I think there was also, I just wanted to say, like, the like perseverance and also hope. There like, I always surprised myself that I always felt like there was hope, even when it like seemed like dismally, you know, like not hopeful, but I just had this kind of eternal hope that it was going to work out, you know, and that if this tactic didn't work out, then I was going to find another one that would. And about doing it for, I know, I forgot what I was going to say. Never mind.
That's okay. Okay, I think we're wrapping up here. We're getting pretty close to the end. Let's see here. What was the turning point that you realized this might actually work, that you thought to yourself, oh my gosh, we might actually be able to?
Well, I mean, one thing in terms of the sex, like, when he agreed to, when I found that idea, when I discovered that idea of scheduling it, I presented it to him, and at first he said like, oh, that might work. And then we kind of like abandoned it. And then we came back to it. And then like, we kind of negotiated, like I wanted it twice a week or 3 times a week. And he said once, whatever. Like, and so we settled on once a week, and we've kept that for a while now. So once that started taking hold, and it, you know, like I said, it hasn't been perfect. Like there have been times he's been more into it and not, or whatever, but I can count on it. And like, even if I'm busy, like, you know, if we have like this time slot scheduled for it, and like, you know, one of us isn't going to be here, like I'll renegotiate, like, so that's not going to work. When else can we do it? And then we'll find another time. And that's worked well. But really, like when we were working together with you, you had the analogy of the paddling down the river in the canoe. And that whole idea, can I share that quickly?
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So you
Share your
said,
take on it.
what?
Share your take on it. What you took from
it. So you said that like often people feel like when you get married that you're in your canoe, and that, you know, going down the river, and that your partner then joins you in your canoe and you're traveling together. And that's not really the case, that you're both like side by side in canoes traveling down the river. And that that there will be times when one of you will go ahead of the other one, and the other one will have to catch up, and so on, you know. And so it felt like since I was doing all this inner work, and I felt like I was much farther ahead. And you said that like at a certain point, it like either he will start paddling faster to catch up to you, or I don't remember what the alternative is, he'll jump ship or something.
The canoe has split.
Capsize, and that's the end of that. So so what I started noticing were like little hints that he was paddling, you know, like he would you know, like he was participating in this like weekly thing, or he would, you know, start doing more chores around the house without complaining, and then happily, you know, or he would like spend, you know, more time together. It was just like little hints, you know. And we're still in the thick of it. I mean, we're still working on stuff, but I really, huh?
Eternally. That is marriage, right?
But I do really feel like we're in a place where I'm no longer like afraid to bring things up, and I feel much more confident talking to him, and he has like followed suit, that like, you know, he's been much more vulnerable, and he's a very sensitive guy, and he tried to put on this like tough exterior, and you know, so he's been showing more of his sensitive side, you know. And now like things have been escalating a lot less, you know, when we have disagreements, we get to a conclusion much sooner, and you know, so.
So if you could give one message of hope or advice, and take a minute, take a deep breath on this, to a woman who's watching right now, who's where you were 2 years ago, what would you say to her?
I would say that it takes 2 to tango, and that even when it seems like it's the other person's fault, you know, or that something's wrong with the other person because they're not matched, that it really is about both people. And I think anybody who would have looked at our situation from the outside a few years ago would probably have said that like I was right and he was wrong. I mean, I know that probably sounds obnoxious, but I really think
also like this might be hopeless. Like,
yes, that this like, yeah, like what is this? And that was one of the reasons I was afraid to talk about it. But it's but he didn't change. Like, I mean, he has changed, but I really think it's because I did all this work, and like I've worked tirelessly like on myself and learning about myself, and it's been a joy. It's been excruciating, and it's been a joy. It's been like the best thing I've ever done, like bar none, the best thing I've ever done. Like, it's just, I don't know, like I feel like my life is like starting over again or something, you know. So yeah, I would say focus on yourself, like really take a hard look at yourself, And if you feel like it's overwhelming to do that, then hire a coach who can help you along the way, because it does make it makes it a lot easier. I mean, I read, I can't tell you how many books I read, how many online quizzes and whatever I tried, but to have someone, and if I can just like put a little plug in here, that it is, because no, I'm serious, like, it is so different from any other kind of therapy. Like, every therapy I've ever done has been just like talking about what's going on and like, you know, rehashing things, and it's not so much about skills as it is just about like getting through this problem, you know, for now. And often it would be like, even when we were in couples therapy a long time ago, like it was just like one against the other, and just, you know. So this is all like what you do. This type of coaching is all about learning skills. It's like teaching a man to fish. It's learning the skills until like finally you cut me loose so that I could like do it on my own, because you knew that I had enough skills to do it on my own, and I do. So
that's beautiful, Julie. That really is beautiful. Okay, let's see here. So if I'm looking through, we've got a lot of comments, and we'll stay on just a couple more minutes. We've gone so long, but it's been so good. Let's see here. Oh, I love this comment from Geraldine. Yes, it has been amazing to watch your transformation. And that was the difference I saw, your 100% commitment, even if he wasn't coming with you, AKA main trip. Well, insider comment there. Hi, Geraldine. Geraldine has also been a client of mine. I'm so glad you watched, Geraldine. Let's see here. What else we have? Question, why would you stay?
why would I stay?
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I think there was this part of me that felt like, well, one thing was I knew that I wasn't entirely happy. And I felt like if I took myself either alone or to another relationship, that I would just be taking that with me, and that I may as well like do the work and discover myself. And then like, if it still wasn't working out, then, you know, at least I would be like, feel whole, and I could take that with me, and then, you know, find someone else. So
amen, right?
But
I said amen. If we're carrying our own bag of shit, it's like we've got to either unload it now or unload it later. It's just as heavy no matter where you go. So just do it now.
right. Righteous, and I was, you know, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've said like I can't do this anymore, like forget it, I'm out of here. And then I'm thinking like, well, where am I going? And I'm taking all of this crap with me, and I'm just going to be unhappy over there instead of over here. So because it started to become obvious like that it's not like I'm filled with joy, and, you know, and he's not matching it. Like I was miserable, you know. So
right. That's amazing. That's so
I don't want to repeat the patterns with someone else.
What really made the change, Julie? What did you do that really made the change?
I think I started to learn what made me tick. Like the main thing of like learning about values and what I value. You know, which people will learn if they work with you. That you know, instead of like just, you know, like sex will make me happy. It's like, well, I mean, yes, but it's like, why does it make you happy? Is it like, is it the connection? Is it the pleasure? Is it the fun? Is it the, you know, spirituality? Like there's so many things that go into the experience of sex. Like it's not just a physical thing. Like if it was just, you know, if it was just physical, like, well, I can do that myself. Like I don't, you don't need anybody.
Exactly. But yet that still leaves me longing. So why is that? Like, yeah.
it's the, you know, intimacy, the into me see, right? Which he loves saying that saying, like, into me see, like someone seeing into you, you seeing into somebody else, like that's what it's all about, you know.
That's beautiful. There's another one here.
This is so much fun. It was such a good time.
When you are in the loop of feeling desperate and needy, expecting him to fill the void of emptiness, how do you reframe that expectation? What a question.
Right. Well, that also comes from, I think, the inner work, because one thing that I did a lot of, and I'm getting better at, is taking on his energy. So when he was negative or, you know, kind of like an energy vampire, you know, it's like I would get sucked into that and I would like take that on and bring myself down. And so now that I've been practicing not doing that and staying in my own energy, it doesn't really matter. Like, I mean, it's not, I don't want to say it doesn't matter. I mean, obviously you want the other person that you're with to be, you know, higher vibration and really in it and whatever, but it doesn't, even if I'm disappointed, it doesn't, you know, it doesn't like ruin me. Like it doesn't ruin my day, you know, I can still bounce back from it. And
your cup is full. And so when you go to someone with a full cup and they aren't able to add to your cup, it's not as devastating as when you go to them and you're absolutely parched and you're going to die or, you know, starve to death. And you go to them with this empty cup and they say no. It's like my whole cup is just crumbled, you know. It's a whole different experience, isn't it?
Yeah. This like technique where you're kind of like, it's almost like you imagine like mirrors or like reflective panels or something. It's like you stay in your own energy, and so if somebody is trying to like suck that energy, or like you tend to like absorb other people's negative energy, then you can kind of like keep it in their zone and you can like stay in your own, you know. It's like a force.
I think that's all the questions there is, but I do see one comment that I'm like, oh, yep, I know there's more than one person that's thinking this right now. Christina said, it's not fair that we have to do the work and they get the easy way out.
That's what I said. That's what I used to tell you. I used to say, this is not fair. It's not fair. Well, here's the thing though. Okay. It didn't feel fair, but I'm so glad that I did, because listen, I mean, if we had continued as we were and had, you know, sex on a regular basis, like I still wouldn't have been as fulfilled internally. Like, just because.
So you like, mean if nothing had changed except for now you started scheduling sex?
No. I mean, like, nothing had changed from before, because it's not like we were always like this. I mean, there was a long period of time.
Oh, I see.
And everything was fine on that front. But what I mean that like I hadn't I didn't really know myself, is what I'm trying to say. Like I feel
all this happened with
it's almost like this all happened for a reason, so that I could learn about myself and be a happier person in general. What?
That is, I mean, we can't just pass that statement.
Right. Well, something that
this all happened for a reason.
Right. Well, that's something that I learned from you also, which you know, and sometimes it's easier than others to come from that place, because, you know, you can get really tested on that front when things go wrong. But what I've started doing is saying, like, if something doesn't go the way that I expect, I've actually started saying, like, that probably means that something better is going to happen, like something even better. And then like I kind of wait for the better thing to happen. It doesn't always happen that way, but I have seen too much happen that has been like, when something doesn't go as expected and then something better comes along or whatever, it turns out, you know, or something different happens that's just as good. I've seen too much of that for me not to believe it. And so even though it's really hard to believe that like all of this happened for a reason with him or with anything, you know, that I've been through, like I almost don't even want to question that, because like it's just become too good to, you know, I mean, and this is not to say again, like everything's perfect, but I internally feel like it's happened for a reason. Like, and so when you say like, it's not fair that we have to do the work, if you're thinking that way, then you probably have a lot of work, you know, inner work to do. And I don't want to sound like holier than thou about it, but like, just from having been there, you know, it's just really from having been there.
That's it. Yeah.
Because that's where I was. That's where I was.
And I mean, how crazy. I mean, how crazy to think that the thing, and I feel like anyone who's really stepped into this spiritual path can say that the things that cause us the most pain are the things that we say, you know, I will never be grateful for this thing or whatever, end up giving us the most fruit, the most, it's like the biggest gift. I know that's been the case for me. I look back and I just think, oh, like, I'm so glad I didn't, you know, even commit suicide or escape the marriage or like any way that I could just run away from this thing. I'm so glad I just chose to stay and choose me so I could be where I am now, learning things, you know?
We didn't talk about the Madonna thing. Can I?
Sure, go ahead. You can bring it up.
That's rough. Okay, so there's this thing that I discovered called the Madonna whore complex. And what it is in a nutshell, it's men can have a tendency, and apparently it's very common, to either see women as Madonna, like, and not Madonna the singer, although they could see her that way. Okay, Virgin Mary, Madonna, like Madonna and Child, or a whore. It's like they see them as one or the other. It's like an object of desire, or, you know, a chaste, you know, like the mother of their children, you know, that kind of thing, a maternal figure. And so it can come from different places. And if you just look it up on Wikipedia, it's very concise definition. It really gets to the point, and it's very, anyway, but basically, it's like they either see them one or the other, which makes it really hard if they're married to somebody who then it's like either they're like attracted to them and they have sex with them, or they see them as the mother of their children and they can't perform those things. And so it can lead to, you know, withdrawal of, you know, sex and that kind of thing. Yeah, and it can come from all different kinds of like trauma, and like having, you know, they say like can come from like having a cold mother, like, you know, not a great relationship with their mother. So they're looking for this maternal relationship to fill that need. And then when they have that, then they have trouble, you know, being sexually attracted to them. And so it gets very complicated, but apparently it's very common from what I've read.
What I would say to that is, if any of this is something that you guys find yourselves in and you want some help, then reach out for help. I offer a free 15-minute call, and I can at least guide you to some resources, or that call could change your life. It could be the catalyst to you literally sitting here, you know, in 6 months or 2 years from now, being like Julie, saying like, look at what I did, you know, look at who I am and look at how far I've come. So I'll go ahead and put that information in the comments with my link and stuff.
Do it.
Yeah, if you want to book a call here, I think I have about 5 slots that I opened up just for this for tomorrow. So I'll put that in the comments. Go book a call. And Julie, thank you so much for doing this. Thank you. This was such a joy. You are such a joy. Thank you for being a gift to the world. Thank you for saying yes to all your trials so that you could come here and tell us how to do it and what to do, and that there's hope.
Yep, there is hope. There's definitely hope. I feel like this phrase is thrown around a lot, but if we could do it, anybody can do it, honestly, really. Yeah, so thank you for having me.
Okay, mwah. Bye everyone. Thanks for watching.